Well, hello, everybody. My name is David Carr here, welcoming you back to the Business Roundtable podcast. It is the new year. We're in the first week of January here, and I'm joined with some great colleagues. For those of you that are joining me for the first time, and for us, we'll do brief introductions. Again, I'm David Carr with Steward Your Business, focusing on overall organizational health, helping leaders and their lead themselves and their team. So that's my overall focus is that aspect of business. I'll throw it to Stacey to introduce herself.
All right, welcome and thank you. So, Stacey Kinoshita, I am a business consultant and resource specialist focusing on strategies to help business address their workforce concerns and their cash flow. So,
Excellent.
mhm,
Thanks, Stacey. Welcome back.
thank
Doc
you.
C, we had a great conversation last week. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Curtis Cochran here. We're in mergers and acquisitions consulting firm. We help build businesses, make them more profitable and enjoyable to run, but more importantly, sellable. And that's what we do. But thank you
Yeah.
for the invite.
Thanks for coming back. Bill, we got you back. Yay. I know last week we tried to get you off. We had technical difficulties, but you're back. Welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Due to technical difficulties.
Yes.
My name is Bill Hatch. I am a leadership guide and podcaster. You can find my podcasts under the Bald Spots Productions label. And I'm glad to be back too.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And we've got Luke here. Luke and I have known each other for quite a while. We're glad to have you, Luke. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Thank you, David. Appreciate being on here. Looking forward to seeing what I can learn and join in on this great conversation. So Luke Kibler, owner and founder of Vantage Insurance Solutions. We specialize in retirement planning and wealth strategization, helping people offset market volatility and risk when it comes to planning out their financial goals and achieving that, whether that's in business or in their personal life. So
that's great. Thanks, Luke. Yeah, and we have got a great topic tonight. We're building off what we talked about last week regarding planning, which is all really important to successful business. But inevitably, things don't go to plan, and we have obstacles or challenges that arise. And so our focus in this episode tonight, as we're sharing with you guys, or whenever you get to listen to this, this is this. What do you do as a business owner when you have these challenges that inevitably come up? And oftentimes we plan for the best case scenario, but it doesn't always turn out that way. And so we're going to be leaning on to all of these business owners tonight to share their personal experiences, insights to help you as another business owner or leader in an organization plan and prepare for those challenges that will inevitably be coming your way. So I'm excited to get into that with you guys tonight. You guys are all seasoned. I think we're all passionate about helping individuals and business owners grow and face these challenges. So some of the ones, and we'll dive into these a little deeper, but some of the ones that come to mind for me at least is, economic is definitely one and that we face in changing times. And Luke, you've just talked about that, financials, personal, and as the company, we look at market competitions, technology, people. There's a lot of different ones in there. So we're going to hit on some of them in this episode. And I was talking to Stacey earlier. Honestly, we don't have enough time to go into all of these in great depth, but we're probably going to have follow-up episodes. You're going to want to come back and hear on those topics. So if there's one that resonates with you or you want to hear more, we want to make sure you comment when you're listening to this. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback. So out of those, I'll start with one: money, cash flow. We talked about this before, like you said at the beginning, Stacey. Economic fluctuations, they inevitably come to a business for various reasons. And if you're not prepared or planning for that, it can actually kill a business if you're not, or certainly depress the business for a time until it can actually get back on its feet. So I'll throw it out there, and maybe I'll just start with you, Curtis, first, because we talked about planning last episode and just thinking about, how do you deal with this as a business owner, particularly if you're looking to get it sellable, right? You want to make sure that it looks the best, it's the most profitable, it's enticing. And how do you handle that when those impacts inevitably come, or prepare for them? There's a lot of different aspects there, Curtis, from mindset to tactical things, but I'd love to get your thoughts on that as a business owner.
You know that there's just so many, as you mentioned, there's just so many pieces here. But what I personally used in my business, and I even help others, is of course that positive mindset that you mentioned. I call it a mind shift, because sometimes when it's a mindset, we're set in our ways, and so we have to shift the way we're doing things. But I think the biggest thing in what I teach and in my business is to think big. And there's a great book, I can't remember the author of it. Some of you probably read it before, but you have to think your goal or your business has to be bigger than you yourself and even your team. That goal, you have to think so big. And some people think, don't think too big, but I kind of disagree with that. I mean, because if you can think big, then you're going to, whatever obstacles comes your way, you're going to find a way to solve them. That's why we're creatures of creativity. I mean, they come our way for a reason, and we just have to find a solution. I was just talking to a business owner today. That's why you get paid the big bucks. You're a problem solver. Mm-hmm. So problems come, be a problem solver, and just think big. So that's kind of what our philosophy is here at Cochran Consulting.
That's great, Doxy. I mean, when those challenges come, you've got to have that bigger goal in mind. That's what I'm hearing you say. If you're thinking small, or what's that saying? You're playing not to lose versus playing to win.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah. So, Bill, you want to get your thoughts here?
Yeah. Well, Doxy said something that really hit with me about mindset. You get set in your ways, which is why I always teach smarter goals instead of just smart goals. My second R is reevaluable. You must be able to reevaluate those goals as different things come in. If you get set in your ways, then something comes along that's different and makes it so that you can't do that anymore. Well, you're going to fail. You're planning to fail, and so you need to set yourself up in advance for being able to be flexible, to be able to reevaluate these goals and plans that you have.
That's great. I think that's important, Bill, and I'd love to get comments from any of you on this, because I've done this in business where you, like Fluctuations, you have a service or a product that you're offering, and that product is the market, or because it's market too, but it's shifted, or the value is shifted. So that offering now, like you're saying, Bill, you're reevaluating it. Once was maybe profitable and worthwhile, but to continue to do that is actually no longer financially viable anymore. And you have to make some hard decisions sometimes as a business owner, because there's been a shift in the marketplace for different reasons, or there's different value in there. Any thoughts, maybe Stacey or Luke, on that? You guys want to jump in?
Sure. Luke? Yeah, I'd be happy to. Or Stacey, you're welcome to go first if you'd like.
Well, I was, when it comes to challenges in business, we can break them down into different areas. And I like the fact that we started with mindset and as Doxy said, thinking big and being flexible, because I think that could be a killer in any business. So any situation that we bring out there, whether it be cash flow challenges, whether it be workforce challenges, whether it be systems challenges, you have all these different areas. And in order for you to break away from stale thinking, or thinking that's not going to get you, it's going to keep you in the same place and not allow you to pivot, as the word during COVID was businesses had to pivot. You have to be flexible, and you have to be willing to think outside the box. And I think having that creative mindset allows you to be able to bend and move and to find creative ways to bring out creativity as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, to be able to pivot in those areas. But
not to be so rigid. You're saying, I hear that's what I kind of hear, Stacey. Is like you have to bend a little bit and be able to like, oh, it's only going to be this way, but you're like, oh, look, it's already shifted or it's moved. You know,
you have to be able to pivot. Oh, it could be even overnight, like with COVID. When COVID happened and there was a shutdown, businesses that did not move fast enough, that did not shift fast enough, that weren't creative enough, that took the time and had to think, are no longer around. But the ones that said, let's stick with the creativity for a minute. I had a business owner. She was a hair salon stylist, and they shut down all the salons. Matter of fact, the day before, I drove by a new salon, and she was putting her sign up and I went to congratulate her and set up a meeting to meet with her to go over some of the strategies that I could offer her, and then finding out that it shut down. But this other stylist, you know what they did? They talking about thinking outside the box and being creative in a challenging situation. One is that they put paper. Now, I know this is that we're not talking legal, but we're talking if the goal in business is to survive, then you do what you got to do to survive, right? So she put paper on her windows and she started cutting hair and inside. Blocking the windows, making sure that no one could see. And at one point, they even started cutting hair outside. And so it's like but if you've got this rigid mindset and you think, oh, no, that's too ghetto for us to cut outside, you're gone. You do what you got to do to get where you need to go. I mean, not shoot anybody or do anything illegal.
Yeah.
But you gotta think outside the box and be willing to like do what it takes to make it happen. And so, she's still alive. So I love the fact that she was able to take a challenge that probably shut down so many other salons, and she was willing to move and bend. But it takes, as Doc C said, it takes creativity. Because if you sit there and say, we don't have a place to go, but you don't think, let's move everybody outside. Let's put, go in the back. So that I think is key to being able to succeed as an entrepreneur, is the being able to be creative, being flexible, and then having the mindset to be able to go where the journey takes you, and have that determination to win, even in spite of all the challenges that you have, keeping your business going. So
great story, Stacey. Thanks for sharing. Luke, how about you?
Yeah. All great points. Really good. I think of one of the first things that comes to mind in some of those comments is the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Have you guys read that book?
Yeah.
I heard of it.
That's a good one.
Great book. We tend to get so emotionally attached to what we think is what we're trying to do. And we have to have, I think, that a mindset of agility and an adaptation. And that is just a way to live, a way to operate as an ongoing methodology. So I think that's great. One of the other things I think of when you talk about being resilient, about surviving those unexpected curveballs that life throws at us, is the concept of who, not how, and something that I've focused on a lot recently as we've been growing quite a bit. When we approach a problem, a lot of times our first reaction is always to ask, well, how do I fix this? How do I solve this? How do I work around this? Right? How do I create a solution? Which is, I think, a great initial step is being solution focused, not problem focused. However, I think I've come to learn that often an even better question is, who can help me fix this? Who can help me solve this? Who not only is better at this than I am, but loves doing it because I hate doing it. Who is that person that loves data entry? Who is that person that knows how to work a spreadsheet or fix this marketing change in the whole industry? Who is that marketing expert that just like stays up at night figuring this stuff out because it's what they love? Who, not how. And so asking yourself, especially as a business owner, that collaborative mindset when it comes to problem solving is far more powerful than just your own internal creativity and solutions. And so I think that's one of the things I personally have evolved in over the last year, is beginning to ask myself that question and beginning to gather those types of people and resources rather than trying to be the answer to everything. Find the ones that have those answers, are already 10 steps ahead of me.
Well, that's Luke, that's really important, because I think as business owners, sometimes we feel like we have to do it all.
Yeah.
Especially small business owners, right? Guilty too. The reason why we have roundtable is that we can help business owners hear they've got some other people that they can talk to.
Mhm.
Any one of us, as you guys listen to this, as you're coming back in here, reach out to any one of us. We're happy to talk with you and engage with you, each one of us, and our unique talents, abilities, gifts that we have for each other. And so finding that, I think, is really great, Luke, what you're saying. I think particularly the small business owner, they feel like they have to do it all. And then Stacey, you've talked about this in the past. Sometimes they're doing it so much, and if they would have actually spent the money and the time helping a consultant or get somebody else, would actually make more and engage their team in a much better way than the time that they're taking away, that they could actually be more profitable in their business.
I agree. You know, let me share another tangible experience. When I had my business, it was a learning center, and when I first started, I had an in-house. No. I had an outside bookkeeper, and what I found was that one of the most important things that a business owner needs to know is their cash flow. So I would like to tackle, that's one of the biggest challenges, and I'm sure we can all chime in with that. But cash flow is crucial for any business to survive. And so we can even tackle that this time or later, that's fine. But what I found was that in order for me to know exactly day to day what my cash flow is or was, that I needed an in-house bookkeeper, somebody that could, or someone who could tell me on a daily basis what my cash flow was. And I had tried all kinds of things. I had an outside bookkeeper I had paid a bookkeeper to come in, and I didn't know what I was looking for. I was new in business, and she was working for another firm, other organization, and told me she knew what she was doing. I'm giving you an example of how you could jeopardize the life of your business by trying to figure it out on your own versus talking to someone who is experienced, who could tell you the pitfalls so that you don't go through what I went through. So, so hired her to come in, and what she was doing was that she was reconciling my bank statements after the bank statements came out. So I only knew my cash flow after the statements came out. So there was a time when, after 2008, and the cash flow was down, and I'm thinking that she's telling me that, we give you an example, let's say that there's $10,000 in the bank account. Well, and I'm writing checks, I'm doing payroll and writing all these checks, and then I'm getting all these overdrafts because I'm thinking there's $10,000, but she's giving me old numbers. And I kept saying, you need to be my eyes. You need to. I knew what I wanted. I didn't know how to articulate. I kept saying, like, why am I getting overdraft? She tells me this. I tried outside bookkeepers, and finally I found somebody who was very competent, who could tell me day to day, this is where your cash flow was. But not only that, she actually knew. She had the skill to be able to know when to hold off paying certain things. Knew if I had a grace period. She was able to manage my cash flow so that I wasn't just paying bills just out of paying bills, but there was a strategy behind making sure that my cash flow was not tied up in a bunch of bills going out. So I learned the hard way to find the right in-house bookkeeper who can help me understand where my cash flow was and to help me monitor my cash flow. But as a new business owner, when I started, I just thought I just need a bookkeeper. I just need somebody to do. And so it was costly. At one point, I realized that I was $25,000 in the minus. And I think felt like somebody punched me in the stomach. And when I went to the bookkeeper and said, did you know we were $25,000? And I kept sensing what's off here. But that was a hard lesson to learn as a business owner, that thinking that I'm paying this person to do the job, and not realizing that I didn't even have a competent person, in part because I didn't know QuickBooks and I didn't know how to go in and check. And so that's just one area of that could be.
Well, I think that's a good one. I mean, I'm happy to go in there, and I'd love to get Curtis's thoughts on this, because if you're buying a business, right, Curtis, you're looking at the cash flow, you're looking at the accounts receivable, right?
Correct.
So how do you, as a business owner, if you're having that trouble, the obstacles come up, I'm not getting paid. We kind of talked a little bit about this last time.
Yeah. Well, we obviously help business owners get into business, and I think probably the three major parts about being a business would be number one, capital, which is cash flow, is exactly what Stacey's saying. Number two is their client base. Who's your client? I mean, a lot of business, I'm going to open up a ABC, whatever it is. And sometimes they don't even know who their clients are going to be. And sometimes it's so narrow that it's not going to support them at all. And the third thing that is really important is advertising, marketing strategies, all of these things. I think those three things are extremely important. Now, when we look at evaluating businesses, like Stacey just mentioned, is cash flow is, I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. It's cash. Now, a business that's not making any money, it's still valuable, but it's not as valuable. I will say that, because there's probably, especially if they've been in business for a long time, but I don't want to talk about that. I will talk about the cash flow that you asked me to talk about a little bit there, David, because that's extremely important. If I'm a buyer and I can come in and I can buy your business and I can give you 50% down and use your seller financing or something like that, and I can use the cash flow to pay you back. I mean, that's going to help both the buyer and seller. That's a win-win situation. So when Stacey's talking about cash flow, we've heard it before. Cash is king. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. Every business is in business for one reason, and all that other stuff is, culture and all that stuff that we've talked about on this show. The bottom line, cash is king. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so you have to, as a business owner, even dealing with all those problems that you deal with, you have to find a way to deal with your margins. You have to find a way to increase your margins, cut your costs, and try to make everybody happy with the dollars you have. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you got, and again, going to what Stacey talked about earlier about think outside of the box. So before I started Steward Your Business, I was in an environmental consulting field for many, many years. And there's different ways. This is the thing. You can be different. You can be creative in the way you contract with different groups or individuals. Hopefully get Bill back here. We lost Bill, but let's see if we're going to get Bill back on stage. There you go. Welcome back, Bill. But so here's just some ideas to think about. One of the things we realized in this is a consulting specifically, but if you're not asking for a retainer, for example, up front, that's one that can help with pay, because if you're planning for that, especially if the person goes out of business or something, at least you've got some kind of income on the front end to help you with that. If you're waiting to the end and getting paid later and later, or they don't. So that's one. Another one I'll just throw out is, give a discount for getting paid quicker. Because that, again, we talk about cash is king, right? Mm-hmm. It's better to get paid, get a little discount in 15 days or 30 days than waiting 60, 90 days. Yeah, you lose a bit of quote unquote profit there. But reality is, if you're paying, this is what I've seen a lot of businesses, especially that have a lot of people that they have to pay for, is you have to go get a loan from the bank to cover payroll and cash. You're paying money on that. And so your actual profitability starts to go down because you're borrowing money to pay your people. And the longer you have to do it to wait to get paid, that puts you in a challenge. And so you have to be very careful about looking at that and planning too for you, like you were talking about, Stacey, looking at all those numbers. So what's the fluctuation? If I lose somebody or if I add somebody, what does that affect? And
right.
There's a
lot. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good.
There's a lot you can do. There's a lot. If we're going to stick with cash flow, there are other things that you can do with cash flow. I know that when I had, because it was a learning center, that in my registration form, I put in systems, and we talked about systems before, and the importance of systems. But the parents and the students had to give a 30-day notice before they quit. So imagine if I didn't have that in place, and somebody walked in and said, "We're quitting today," and let's say that they brought in $300 a month. Well, if you don't have systems in place, that's $300 that you were counting on to pay your bills. And just like that, they can walk in and cancel. And so I made sure that I had systems in place like that, so that I knew that at least for that month, I would have that cash flow, and then anticipating what I needed to do to bring in some additional cash flow. If I were going to lose 3 students, what that would calculate to be, and how many more new students I would have to bring in to be able to offset the loss of that. So that's another way to bring in, to watch your cash flow, is to understand those numbers as well. It's really about numbers and understanding how your business flows and the flows and ebbs, and being able to gauge where you are with your cash flow. So,
Luke, do you want to chime in there?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned in business and by experience myself, but also for a time in my past, I focused a lot on working with business owners as a risk management consultant and commercial insurance expert for them. And so I got to witness from the inside out a lot of those struggles from a cash flow perspective. And one of the things I've witnessed is the growth can kill a company very quickly. And so one of the principles I try to live by and encourage small business owners to live by is be quick to profit, slow to growth. Focus on the profit line and understanding those margins, building up those cash reserves first and foremost, so you have the ability to roll with life's punches. As the saying goes, it doesn't matter how much you make, it matters how much you keep.
Right.
And it's really easy, especially when you're growing at all, to have those expenses compound faster than your income does and your revenue, especially if there's lag time between what it costs to run your business and when revenue comes in from the service or product you provide or sell. Many times there can be that delay in those accounts receivable where you may not get paid for 60, 90 days or something, and yet your costs are now. Understanding how those work together. And so when I coach clients, often, because from a wealth planning perspective, one of the first things we focus on is building cash reserves, building liquidity, productive, predictable assets that give you the ability to be very agile financially, so that you can capitalize on opportunities, but also you can deal with the blows and the unexpected expenses. You need to be able to deal with both of those things. So first and foremost, building that buffer, that financial buffer of productive liquid cash that can give you that, and as well as credit that can give you that ability to capitalize on opportunities and roll with the punches, is the first step of financial planning that we often deal with. Forget investing for the long term and some of these other things that will come in time. None of that will be sustainable if you can't roll with life's punches and capitalize on opportunities.
And we talked a little bit about this last week, Curtis. As you grow in the business life cycle, and you have your E4 method, but what gets you to a certain level, let's just say 3 million, isn't going to get you to 7 million. The process and like all that you're talking about. So people understand the business life cycle that you live, Curtis. They don't understand that and have studied that, then you're setting yourself up, like you're saying, Luke, for some real challenges. If you just want to grow for the sake of growth and not counting all that other costs there.
Yeah, you have to find out exactly how much it's going to cost for you to grow. I mean, that's the bottom line. Luke hit it. I mean, you go after, business owners, you go after the quickest, fastest dollar. And you don't want your dollars, as you mentioned, David, you don't want people to pay you 60, 90 days later. You have to find a way to get your dollars in faster than everybody else. Because if you can do that, you have cash flow. That's what it is. That's what it's all about.
I like to bring up another area about cash flow. I mean, a lot of times too, small business owners, if they could reduce their operating costs just by streamlining their system, streamlining the processes. I mean, there are other ways that you could, look at that too. I mean, if you're accomplishing a certain process in 5 steps, but you can narrow it down to 3, now you freed up more time and you're not having to pay out as much. So the business owner really needs to look at all the different areas of their business and see where they can free up cash flow or streamline. And again, they may not be able to see it while they're inside the business. That's why it pays to get some outside eyes to go in and look at, ways to be able to do that. But I mean, we had talked about this before, Curtis, about, systems. And again, systems, if you really have strong systems in place with your business, that should also help you reduce your cost to some degree. And even, workers' comp, claims, all of that can kill your cash flow. There's just so much that is involved with business that can kill cash flow. So you really need to take a holistic view of your business in areas where you can tighten up and, So
I think we could definitely go more on this one, but you brought up a component that I want to touch base on, Stacey. And I think this is good. I want to come back to cash flow, but related to that, you talked about operations, and technology is huge. We're here right now on we're using this streaming platform, and we're able to share. And you think about, if you don't adapt to the change in the technologies, before COVID, video conferencing was still around, but it was definitely not as prevalent as it is today, right? If you're a business owner and if you're putting all your eggs, so to speak, in a basket of physical space and making sure people come into a place, that's a lot of money and a lot of place. And then like you talked earlier about, Stacey, like, how do you adapt? Because you can, again, adjust and say, like, okay, I can have a remote workforce, or shrink down the size of my physical footprint that I have to pay for every month, using technology's innovation. And so I want to throw out that idea. And maybe Bill, I'll throw it to you, because you're a tech guy with podcasts and tools. If you got and just thinking about this, but like technologies and things change, right? And Curtis, you and I talked about this last week about Kodak. Kodak was a film company, and then technology and digital cameras came out, and they didn't change with the technology. They were actually one of the first in the market, but they didn't adjust, and they were not able to be responsive to the market and the technology that is changing. So, Bill, from a business owner and realizing these tools, and you and I were talking about podcasting and showing me some other ways to reach people. There's a whole bunch of things in there, but I'd love to get your perspective as a business owner. How do you adapt and be resilient to these technology changes and innovations?
Well, research is essential in this day and age, because there are so many different conference software companies out there that and they each offer slightly different things. That it's like GoToMeeting may offer a feature that Zoom doesn't, and that you need, so Zoom's not going to work, or vice versa. I use a different software for doing my podcasts than you do, because of different needs that I felt were important. And you have to do the research to know where those differences are, and to be able to make a knowledgeable decision, an informed decision on what that is. There are so many different needs that a company may have when going for a remote workforce, that you may need more one-to-one time with the individuals who are working remotely, or you may need just groups of people that to be able to speak with at once. Of course, one of my big plan this year is to start a mastermind, and so I'm doing the research on what service is going to do that, and I'm looking to see if one of those services might actually work as a replacement for my podcasting software as well. So I may be able to kill two birds with one stone, but I won't know that until I've studied all the options that are out there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Bill. Is sometimes we grab a solution quickly because we think like everybody's using it, or that's what it should be, instead of asking ourselves the questions you're just talking about, Bill. What am I trying to solve here?
Identify the problem.
Yeah, what's the problem?
Yeah.
What's the problem
What's the
statement
issue?
here? And we can get sucked into, right, the latest and the greatest.
Yeah.
I mean, there are and these things move quickly sometimes. Some of these technologies, so you got to be careful before you say I'm going all in. I would say, as an entrepreneur too, when you're, for example, communicating your message or going somewhere, it's like there's a lot of different ways you can reach people: email, text, different social media platforms, all of these things. You got to be careful about where you only have so much time and energy, right? And so you've got to be careful about. And I think someone who said this earlier, who are you trying to reach, right? Who are these people that you're serving? Are they even there, right? And so asking these questions about, could I go on, try a different platform, even like saying technology, is that the right fit for my company and who I want to be, and the people are there. So I really like your idea, Bill, of asking these questions, doing the research. And again, I think, Stacey, you were talking about this earlier about you personally necessarily don't have to do the research per se. If you have somebody else in your organization, somebody may love to do that. Or Luke, you said that too. Like, who is in the organization, particularly if they're a lower cost individual, nothing bad. I mean, you can pay them a certain rate and they can do it and they love it. Great. That's the things that they can't do, things that you can do, right? So if there's people in that organization that can do that kind of research for you and bring back recommendations and suggestions, especially the end user anyways, right? If they're going to be your end user. Stacey, you got other thoughts on that?
You're saying well, absolutely. When you bring in people in your organization, you do want to look at creating, even in your own organization, I don't want to say a master team, but you want people to hire people who can contribute to the overall plans of your team. And I think if you bring in strong people, that can make those contributions, it definitely will help with everything we've talked about, the creativity. I mean, again, when I had my business and we ran into challenges, I tapped into the creativity of the people that I hired, and I brought them in for a specific reason because I knew that they could think. One of the biggest challenges that a lot of employers have is they hire people that don't even want to think, that can't think. And so one of my processes when I was hiring was I actually asked them a question about, the vision of what they could see, what they could do or contribute, because I wanted to see if they could think outside the box and they could actually contribute to the overall building of the organization. And so, yes, of course, tap into that. You're hiring them, and you're not just hiring them to do a mundane job. You actually want to tap into the creativity and their ability to help create synergy within your organization. So yes, go for it.
Yeah. And I have a couple things I could add to that. I think one of the things that ties in very closely with that is, we, as a small business owners, we tend to be very possessive of our ideas and of our vision. And it can be hard to let go a little bit and give people the autonomy to be creative in their role and be creative in the job you gave them and not micromanage them. Let them expand their portion in that. Because one of the most important parts of this that Stacey's talking about that I think is really important for the health of a company is that your people have ownership in what they're a part of, that they feel like they truly have a valuable role to play as opposed to just an order taker. And I think that goes a long way for what they'll contribute to your organization and how they'll represent your organization to others and to the community and to your clients. If they feel they have a hand in the direction and the value and the growth of the company because you've given them some of that creative license and autonomy. So I think that's really important for the health of the culture. One other quick thought I had when it comes to decision making and researching and things like that, I think an important principle that I've learned to try and live by is to go deep and go deep quickly in your research by identifying exactly what it is you need, meaning the problem you're trying to solve, but then to decide relatively quickly, because you'll learn a whole lot more by experience than by overanalyzation. And so one of the things I've learned to caution people against is analysis paralysis. You get in there and you're researching every CRM on planet Earth, and 2 months later, you still haven't decided on what CRM to do. And you've wasted a colossal amount of time and money because of all of this research. And you'll gain a lot more by clearly identifying what you're trying to solve, identifying a good tool that'll do it, and just implement and learn as you go. And you'll really quickly figure out what works and what doesn't. If you need to shift, then shift. But there's a saying by Jim Rohn I love that indecision is the thief of opportunity. And in business, you have, like we talked about before, you have to be agile, and you need to be able to clearly and quickly identify what action steps need to happen and make it happen, because time is your most valuable asset. And if you spend a ridiculous amount of time researching and analyzing something too long, to infinitum, that can be incredibly costly, far more costly than, quite frankly, making a less than ideal decision. Better to make a decision, learn from it, and take action than just be stuck in paralysis for a while because you're analyzing it to the ninth degree. So,
Yeah.
Amen to that, Luke.
I'd say, and I think there's a scale there, right? So you're looking at what you're implementing, the question, like you're saying, you're trying to answer, Luke. There's some things that are a lot larger. When I talk about a whole accounting system and a whole enterprise resource planning software, and how depending on how large the organization is, there's a magnitude. But I agree with you holistically, Luke, is that you're looking at that. And then I would say, as a business owner, to minimize these changes and things, as one that likes to do that as a creative side and likes to try lots of new things, find a small subsetted team where you can actually bring that in, like you said, Luke, before you roll it out holistically through the whole company. Say, hey guys, here's this brand new thing, boom, and everyone's like, what the heck is this? And there's a lot of resistance and pushback on something. Finding a smaller subset team that'll help you minimize the challenges or the obstacles or the objections. Quite frankly, you're going to get objections no matter what. Whenever you roll out something new in an organization, I don't know. I've never gotten any organization where it's 100% adoption.
Well, I want to be clear too. I'm not advocating constant change. That's for sure.
Right. Yes.
There's a lot to be said for getting really masterful at your business, which means you have to lock in and perfect it. I used to work with a partner that he was the epitome of that. The next shiny object was always coming through the line. It's like, we haven't even figured out the first shiny object we had. Why are we putting another shiny object in here? But it was always like, we kind of try something, a marketing strategy or whatever for a while, and we wouldn't have success right off the bat with it, as inevitably you don't, because it takes a while to get good at it and to run it right. But then you'd kind of get bored of it and go, oh, here's another thing. I'm like, time out. We haven't even figured this thing out. So I'm wholeheartedly with you, David, on that, on the idea of, don't change all the time to change for change's sake, or because you just bored and want to get creative. You need to identify what your model is, what your target audience is, all those things that you need, and then get masterful before you even consider changing. I think it was Steve Jobs that said the idea of being swift to make a decision, but very slow to change it.
Right.
So be resolute in your decisions and stay the course, but don't agonize over something ad infinitum when a decision needs to be made. Mm-hmm. So there's a difference there. So just to make that distinguishing factor there.
Yeah, Bill, you're back. Go for it, Bill. I'd love to get your report.
Yeah. Well, I was once years ago involved in the merging of two organizations, and one of the organizations, the older one, was ready, aim. Wait, are we ready? They aim, and they never get to fire. And the other organization, and the younger organization was, okay, ready, fire. Oh, should we have aimed? And you have to find a middle ground between those two when you're looking at things like research and things like that. Because you can't do too little, and just continually be, you're going to run out of bullets if you keep firing without aiming. And if you never get to fire, there really wasn't a point in getting ready in the first place. Mm-hmm. So
very important.
Yeah.
I love that. Stacey brought this up, and I think you did too, a bit, Luke, is this idea of like innovation technology, but ultimately it's human beings. It's your team that implements whatever this is, or your system, right? So I think talking about how you build a resilient team, we're really passionate. We talked a lot about leadership and culture here, though, too. But if we don't have the right team in there, and Luke, you and I were just talking about this last night, having an amazing team in place that can really implement these things, because that is really important. If you have people, and it doesn't take very many in an organization, especially for a small business, it just takes one. That's going to be a challenge or an obstacle if you've got somebody that is, always has to be right, or they cause problems in the organization. And so just want you guys to address that. Now, Bill, you're going to have to hop off in a minute, but maybe if you wanted to share your thoughts before you leave, because from a leadership perspective and building resilient teams, how practical strategies or solutions here to help overcome obstacles or challenges as a business owner.
Well, the big thing is is identifying the real problem first, I believe. Make sure that you're actually attacking the right problem and not some symptom of the problem. Don't put a Band-Aid.
Oh, don't put a Band-Aid, and we lost him.
Left us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, he's like, don't put a Band-Aid. And what?
Whatever you do, don't do this.
Oh man, we were just gonna have.
Okay.
We were just gonna have Bill. He was gonna have to hop off a little earlier. So, Bill, you're gonna have to come back and share it with us. But that idea of getting at the root problem, because I'll just throw out an example, and I'd love to get you guys' thoughts here. But I've worked in organizations where, particularly if a person's been there a long time, sometimes, and there's a little sense of entitlement, or it's just nobody likes to work around them, but they're entrenched there in somehow, and it's like, how as a business owner do we handle that? Because it's not helping our growth, and doing it in a thoughtful manner and identifying really what the root cause is there. But I'm just giving you an example of a challenge in an individual. These are things that you're going to face as a business owner. But I wanted to hear from you guys. Let me know if there's other ones you want to talk about here specifically, as far as building that resilient team and challenges. Because if you don't have those key people in the organization that are helping lead, develop your team members, just as you have, it's really critical to growth, and it can actually negatively impact if you have somebody that is actually not doing that. They're actually going to repel people. People are going to leave the organization. And if you're not paying attention, just like you said earlier, Stacey, you're as a business owner not paying close attention, and you're like, what's going on here? And then you come in later and you're like, oh, this person is being, not disrespectful, or they're not meeting their sales goals. They're just not really that into their position. You're like, I didn't even know. And if your hands are off, you're not paying attention, you can really, your business can obviously very suffer.
Absolutely.
You'll lose both clients and other team members. So if you're not careful about that, paying attention about that, and we were talking about innovative in technologies, if you have a very opinionated, boisterous person, and they're like, I'm not gonna implement this new program. I'm gonna be resistant to it. It's like that idea, that the bad apple spoils the bunch, meaning it starts to spread through the organization. And so you need to know how to address that challenge. I
would say one of the biggest systems that you can put in place is accountability in some form or shape. I know, Doxy, you're probably going to chime into this, but I think when you leave a business culture, or you leave your employees to their own demise, then you come back to a business where you will not recognize it, because you've got mutiny and all kinds of chaos that you never thought that would seep in. And so if you don't have a way to, and it could be what's the word? Annual reviews. It could be, there's all kinds of ways to put in systems to be able to hold people accountable to their job responsibilities. And I think I've gone into businesses where, like you say, so the decision maker, which could have been an HR director or whatnot, just really didn't care about their job, just really was there to get a paycheck, and because of that attitude, created a culture within the business where employees weren't being taken care of as far as their benefits. They wouldn't allow the benefits advisors to come in and educate them, because it was too much work for them. I mean, so somebody can chime in as far as, your thoughts on being able to hold people accountable for their job or results or whatnot. So anybody?
Well, excuse me. I've been listening, and I tell you, one of the things that I love sports for so many reasons. Number one, everybody knows the objective. The objective is today. All right, guys, let's go out, gals, let's go out and let's lose one for the Gipper. It's just they know what the purpose is, and Luke touched. Everyone of you touched on it. And that is what is our objective? I mean, and if it is money, which it is, and I hate to always say that, but it is, then we have to develop systems, Stacey, as you mentioned, and checks and balances, key performance indicators, all these things come into play. Why do we need all those things? Because humans are crazy. We're just crazy. We know it. And those that are listening to this call, we are crazy. And so once you understand that, then you understand this. You understand that you have to make sure that every day everybody knows exactly what they're doing. Because if you don't know what they're doing, 9 chances out of 10, they're not doing their job. Period. End of story. I mean, you have to make sure, and you can do that based on systems, Stacey, that you mentioned, checks and balances, because when you see that your margins are moving in a certain direction, you know something's happening, but you better catch it way before that, or it could be the end game for sure. But that's why I like sports all the time, because today we lost. All right, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? But everybody knows the end game that, look, if we don't make the playoffs this year, it could be our job, right? Coaches, players, all that. That's how it works. And in business, it should be the same way. You can't hide. And especially with technology nowadays, and how we have so many analytics and all these different measures, you can't hide anymore. So you better just stick your neck out there and take one for the team, because if you don't, somebody else will. Period. End of story. And that's where HR comes into play. And the HR is actually for major companies are doing two things. They're really doing two roles. So roles for management and CEOs, and roles for employees. It's really the middle ground for them. But I'll tell you, it's things are changing rapidly, and if we don't, it'll go back like we said last week, David. I think I mentioned last week, Luke, is that back in the horse and buggy days, and nobody thought that, no way we're going to replace horses and buggies and whips and all employees that worked with all those things. And next thing you know it, somebody brought in this Model T. What is that? And that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen as we sit here and talk right now. Things are changing even more rapidly than ever before.
Well, I wanted just to add to that. I pulled the resource off my shelf. This is a great book if you want to check it out. 12-week year. But this idea of accountability is in this book, Stacey, and really what it is we can have consequences for what people do. It's not really accountable. There's consequences for what you do or you don't do.
That's my point. And if you don't do, I mean, there should be.
And those could be good things, and they could be bad things, right? Consequences, making your sales goals and getting a great bonus, or not getting that bonus because you missed it. But I think the idea is what you said, Curtis, and I'll get Luke in here as we're kind of wrapping it up for the night. But this idea of, yes, that we do need to have visibility, like you're saying, Curtis. And today there's great tools. I use them and apps and things that you can show visibility. Literally, what are the facts? This isn't speculation. This is just the facts. This is the reality of where you're at. And as we talked about last time, planning, where do you want to go? What's the end mind? So you have a foundation of understanding of where you're at, which then helps us to then, like building a house, where are we going to build, where we're going to frame off of. But if we don't know where our foundation is, there's nothing to shoot for. We've got to understand that, and then know where we want to go. So, Luke, I'd love to get your input here as we're kind of wrapping it up for the night.
On just objectives and having a clear understanding of what you're trying to do.
Just and your team, and any feedback on this idea of consequences, accountability,
Sure. Yeah, I've read, actually, I haven't finished the book, The 12-Week Year, but that's a great book. I started it in the process of it. And so a couple thoughts. I mentioned this a little bit earlier about the idea of ownership in your culture, and giving people enough autonomy where they own both the results and the failures of what they're seeking to accomplish what you've entrusted to them. This idea of stewardship. You've entrusted a certain element of your company to them. They play a role in the success, and there's really no room for dead weight in your company. You have to sort of set that culture of hey, we're an A team. We are top tier players, and that's the only kind of people that there's room for. And sometimes you have to release people back into the workforce to go find a better fit for them because they don't want to play at your level, and that's okay. But when it comes to having those measurable and clear goals for each person in each role, it has to be something that, again, they personally own. So I think one of the best ways to do that is having those conversations with each person, helping them, first of all, if they don't have a clear understanding of what you expect of them, making sure they do, but also turning it around and going, what would be success to you, to your employee, to your team member, going, hey, I don't want you here and not getting the best out of your career. I want you to love what you do. I want you to look forward to your role that you play. I want you to feel purpose and significance in it. What would a successful career here look like to you? Tell me, paint that picture for me so that I can lead you and design a plan in a way that fires you up, that lights your fire and gets you going, I want to get after this. I want to make this happen. So I think in leadership of your team, you've got to help instill that ownership and fire in them by asking them, what do you want this to look like? Put it back on them rather than them just looking at you going, tell me what to do, boss. They'll never really own that if all you're doing is just bossing them around.
Absolutely.
There's a big difference between a boss and a leader. And it's tough to be a leader, but it takes more work. It takes more investment. It gets personal sometimes, but I think you have to do that. And you also have to do those hard things where you have to care enough about your whole company and the good of everyone there to cut someone loose sometimes if they're hurting everyone else. And that's of course a lot easier to say than to do. But I think if you have the perspective of going, hey, I've got to protect everyone, not only everyone in my company, but everyone that we serve, everyone that we seek to have an impact on is affected by that one rotten apple, that one person who doesn't care. And you've got to have that frank conversation with him going, are you going to care or not? And I'll end it with this. I believe in the spiritual law of reaping and sowing. I believe wholeheartedly in that. And so if you can foster an environment where those natural consequences play out, it becomes a lot easier than you trying to manufacture some synthetic consequence. And there's a lot to be said about what I mean by that. But the idea is you set up a culture and environment where the objectives are clear, where there's ownership, there's enough autonomy, and that ultimately, if you don't succeed, that it's just the natural consequence plays out, good or bad. Yep. And that reaping and sowing is the best thing you can do. I know that's how I try to parent my children. It's the same kind of thing.
It's a good way to do it. Yeah.
Anyway, I hope that helps.
That's great, Luke. We're going to wrap it up here for the final thoughts. I'll throw it to Stacey here. We appreciate Luke joining us and Bill, and we'll get just final thoughts from everybody here. So Stacey, just your final thoughts on this idea, key takeaways here for business owners and facing obstacles and challenges as we wrap it up tonight.
Yes. Entrepreneurship is inevitable that you're going to face challenges. And as we said, you don't have to do it alone. Look for people that can support you in this journey. It could be other successful business owners, other people who are successful in their key areas of business that can support your business, but you don't have to do it alone. Again, I like that the natural consequences, reaping and sowing. So just, there's a lot to be said, but I'll go ahead and let Doc C wrap it up.
Doc C, thanks, Stacey.
Yeah, the bottom line, it's kind of what Luke just said in his last comments there is that, we're all in this together, right? It's just the way it is. And so why not just teach people what you've learned? In other words, as you climb this ladder, this corporate ladder, instead of kicking the ladder, why don't you just reach down and help people up to your level? Because eventually you're going to be gone anyway. So why don't you help others? And that's what it's all about and that's why we're on this call here is to really help entrepreneurs. We've all made mistakes. I don't even want to, it's the number of mistakes that I've made and I've learned from them. I've learned from them and I've taught about them. And that's of course how we developed our own little system, our E4 math philosophy system. And so for you that are listening, everyone that's listening to this podcast, I'll tell you what, don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's part of it. Put fear aside. Just go for it. Just you focus on what you really, really want and go for it, period.
Thanks, Doxy. Luke, last thoughts?
I don't know. That's pretty well said. I think that's just of course we go a lot deeper on the idea of reaping and sowing, a lot deeper on some of these individual concepts, you know. But I love what Doxy just said. You know, go out there and fail. Go out there and learn. I like to say, I guess, if I were to give one last thought, I like to encourage my team that there's only two potential outcomes when you venture something, when you endeavor to accomplish a goal or succeed at a task or get better. You're either going to win, meaning you succeed at whatever you're trying to do, or you're going to learn. Both are a great outcome. You win or you learn. And there's no fail unless you quit. And so win or learn. It's a way to move forward.
I love that.
Do it. So.
Well said.
I love that too.
I'm glad to have you here.
Right there.
I'll bring it back around just where we started is your mindset that you are your greatest asset, investing in yourself, knowing, like you said, Doxy, and this bigger vision, encouraging you. You don't get to that bigger vision without failing in these challenges and learning. And there we go. Doxy's got a little friend there. But I think that's so important. Oh,
Doxy,
what's the dog's name? Curtis? What's your dog's name?
Oh, it's Skippy. He has only 3 legs.
Oh, Skippy. See, this is how you got to stay for the end for the special, Skippy.
This is all I have to keep me company.
Yeah. but just encouraging you as you go big this year. We're here at the beginning of 2024. Think big. Think you can achieve more really than you probably have ever imagined. I call it your impossible game. Whatever that is for you, to really think bigger and larger and shoot for that. I want to encourage you to come back because you're going to be able to hear from other stories here as we continue this series, the Business Roundtable podcast. We'll be having other guests. We're thankful for continued returning guests and colleagues here, Stacey, Doxy, Bill, Luke. So thank you all for joining us. And until next week, we'll wish you well. Have a great 2024. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, David.